I quite often talk about debasing of the US dollar, right? Debasing of the US dollar creates inflation in this country. And then basically our US dollar's buying power keeps losing value, right? We have the same nominal $100 bill that we're looking at, but the value is not there. You can't buy the same amount of goods you did 5 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago. So, but the reason that's happening is because our federal government is running massive debts and deficits. So our national debt is up to $36.3 trillion. We're paying $1.2 trillion a year interest on this, okay? Trillion with a T. And the debt in the next 70 days is going to hit 37 trillion because the debt goes up by $1 trillion every 100 days in this country, the national debt. So what does that do, right? And the reason for that is we have a drunken sailor spending Washington that just loves spending money they don't have, okay? And in order to facilitate that spending and the deficit between what's coming into the Treasury versus what's being spent, the Federal Reserve has to issue bonds and to print money. That's the only way we can balance the budget. There is no other way. So all that printing has done what? Look at all the hard assets around you. Gold, which I'm going to talk about now, new all-time high. That's with gold hitting new all-time highs with the bond yields going higher by 100 basis points, US dollar at an all-time high against other currencies, and gold is hitting new all-time highs every day. Why is that? Well, it's a hard asset that well, we bought something else. It's a hard asset that keeps pace with inflation or hedges you against inflation. That's where we are with gold. And look at all the other hard assets. Look at the stock market, almost at new all-time highs. Real estate, new all-time highs. Bitcoin, almost at a new all-time high. So this debasing of the currency, the pumping of the of the dollars into the system is creating inflation. And although Federal Reserve, said this week that inflation may be beaten, I don't think so. I think inflation is coming back. That's why the bonds market is raising yields. But even as the US dollar and the Treasury yields have surged, gold continues to rise, which is completely the opposite. You should expect the opposite to happen. The relative strength of gold has been incredible, no question about it. And gold prices are now up 40% in 12 months. 40%. It's beating the S&P 500 handily. It's getting close to Bitcoin, actually. As the US dollar and interest rates are up sharply. This has never happened in history, and I completely agree. So why is that? Why is gold surging? Well, gold is surging because the markets, there's two reasons for it. The markets don't believe that inflation is dead. Okay, they don't. The Federal Reserve can gaslight all they want. In fact, Mr. Powell gaslighted some more this last Wednesday when they, announced the Fed meeting results from last month, where they had cut the rates by 25 basis points. So the Federal Reserve trying to lower rates. The bond market's raising rates because of that, because of the differential, because the whole world is cutting rates, by the way. Europe is cutting rates, China is cutting rates. So the difference between our interest rates and theirs is getting wider. That's why the dollar is getting stronger, okay, against other currencies. Well, in history, every time that has happened, when interest rates go up and dollar gets strong, gold goes down, right? Well, it's not happening this time. This time, a lot of countries actually are buying tons of gold because one way or another, you have to protect yourself against this debasing of the US dollar, inflation, and gold happens to be a decent inflation hedge. And that's probably the main reason that all this is happening. I mean, I am convinced that everybody should have, 5-6% of their assets in hard assets, probably more in this stage of, depending on the stage of your life, but at this stage, with what's happening with the inflation, with what's happening with debasing of the US dollar, you should have more of your, funds or net worth in hard assets, such as real estate, such as gold, such as Bitcoin and such as stocks, just because you need to protect yourself against this debasing. You need to protect yourself against your dollars losing value. You put dollars in a bank, it's losing 6 or 7% of its value every single year. In 12 years, that $100 that you had 10 years ago is not worth anything. So how do you protect yourself? Well, you protect yourself by pivoting or switching or accumulating hard assets.